Hello, this is Samuel Pinx, and this is my Module 6 research update. And out of the 3 tutorials I chose to demonstrate the AI perception that I set up. So, as you can see, there's a navigation volume box for the AI, and I'm going to go ahead and hit play, and I'm going to hit the apostrophe key to turn on AI debugging so you can visualize what's going on with the AI. Anyway, so at the beginning of the level, the AI in the behavior tree, it will try to find the player's location and it will start moving towards it, kind of chasing the player around. But since it is perception based, as soon as the AI loses sight on the player, there's a task that will cause the AI to kind of patrol and wander around in random locations, almost searching for the player. And that is much less cut and dry than a specified or specific patrol route. It's a lot more, I guess, organic and realistic. And since it is perception based, as soon as the player gets into the line of sight of the AI like this, it will start chasing the player again. And this will work great for the compat system I will be developing for the project and for the final project. And Jane and I in our group, we talked about the possibility of even implementing a light stealth system, and this will help out tremendously in that goal. And I will now break down the code. Alright, now time for the code breakdown. So, in order to get this perception AI to work, I had to create a new AI controller, and from there I added the AI perception component. And as you can see, whenever I have it selected, there are elements I can create, and there's a bunch of different ones you can choose from. You can choose hearing, and a bunch of among other things, and sight was one of them. So I decided to do a sight perception based system, and it has a radius of 3,000 for the sight and a loose sight of 3,500. So, to go into the code, in the controller, you can see here that at the beginning of the level, it just runs the behavior tree I set up. Super simple. And this right here, this code is responsible for setting up the AI perception. So, it updates the AI perception, and then it sets it as a boolean, and it has the name of can see player. So whether or not if the AI can see the player, it's true. If it cannot see the player, it is false, and you'll see that later. And it gets the blackboard that I created here, and it sets it as the target. And let's see, going into the behavior tree itself, it all starts out with the root, then the selector, and I have 2 specific, I guess, branches. And this one here is for the cannot see player, and I set up in a BORT for this tree, so that as soon as the AI gets the player location, it will abort all of this and focus on this branch. So, going into this, the AI will get a random location within a radius of 2,000, and then it will move to it just using a move to node in the behavior tree, and it does this every 0.5 seconds. And going into the get random location task, you can see here that all tasks start with a event receive execute AI, and all this does is it gets the control pawn, which is the AI, and it gets that location, and then it sets it as the origin for the random location in navigable radius, and that radius is set to 2,000, and then it sets that radius, that random location, to a blackboard value, which is a vector, and then I promoted this to a variable so that I could call upon it within the behavior tree, and it is the random location variable. Then finish the execute, and that task is done. And then moving on to the can see player branch, So as soon as the AI catches the sight of the player, this will all be stopped immediately, and then the AI will focus on this branch. And as you can see earlier, the can see player variable I set up, which is the boolean. Can see player is not set pretty much means that it is false, and then it is set means it is true. So once the AI gets the player's location and it can see the player, it gets the player's location using this task, which will get the player character, get its location, set it as a Blackboard value as a vector, and then I promoted this key to a variable so that I could use it later, and it is public so it could also be edited, and then it finishes the execute. So it gets the player's location and sets it as a Blackboard value. And then once it has that Blackboard value, it will call the move to AI player task that I created. And as you can see here, it gets that Blackboard value for the player location, sets it as the goal, and then performs a simple move to location using this node here, and then finish execute. And in order to get all of this to work, I had to also add in a AI perception stimuli source within the third-person character blueprint, and I chose the AI sense site for that as well, because without that this would not work, because that kind of tells the AI that this is one of those things to kind of follow once the perception is set onto the player. And that is how I managed to do the AI perception. Thank you.